There comes a moment in every long-term relationship when the quiet questions begin to echo louder than the spoken ones. Are we still connected? Do we still understand each other? Do you still want me the way you used to? Do I still matter to you, in that deep, intimate way? We don't always voice these questions. In fact, most couples never say them out loud. But they pulse beneath the surface, soft, urgent, persistent, shaping the way we feel about ourselves, our relationship, and our partner. Today, I want to talk about something many people avoid, deny, or hide behind awkward laughter: sex communication in long-term relationships, why it becomes difficult, why it matters profoundly, and why learning to speak openly about intimacy is one of the most courageous acts two people can share. This is not a conversation about technique. This is not a conversation about performance. This is a conversation about connection. Because in the story of love, sex is not a separate chapter, it is part of the binding thread that keeps the pages from drifting apart. When love grows quiet, long-term relationships evolve. The early sparks settle, the intensity becomes softer, calmer, more familiar. That is natural. But sometimes, in the comfort of routine, the conversation around intimacy fades into silence. And in that silence, small insecurities begin to bloom. Life gets busy. Bills pile up. Work drains us. Children demand energy. Bodies change. Hormones shift. Stress creeps in. Time feels short. Fatigue becomes constant. And suddenly, the emotional and physical space between two people grows without either of them intending it. They still love each other. They still care. They still share a life. But that living spark, the unspoken glue that makes them feel bonded, skin to skin, soul to soul, begins to dim. Not because the love is gone, but because communication is. The truth is, the biggest threat to intimacy is silence, not distance. Distance can be bridged. Silence, when prolonged, begins to rewrite the story we tell ourselves. Maybe they're not attracted to me anymore. Maybe I'm not enough. Maybe they're bored. Maybe something's wrong with me. And in response, we withdraw. We protect ourselves. We avoid vulnerability. But vulnerability is the foundation of intimacy. And intimacy is the heartbeat of love. Why we fear these conversations. Talking about sex can feel deeply uncomfortable, even with the person we trust most. We fear judgment. We fear rejection. We fear hurting the other person. We fear the possibility that we might learn something we don't want to hear. But here's the truth many people never discover. A relationship where intimacy is never discussed openly is a relationship where intimacy slowly becomes accidental rather than intentional. Sex is a profoundly emotional experience. In long-term love, it's less about physical need and more about emotional affirmation, about feeling seen, wanted, desired, safe. When we suppress our needs, our fears, or our dissatisfaction, we quietly disconnect from the person who should know us most intimately. Most couples don't struggle because their desires differ. Most couples struggle because they don't talk about their desires. We assume. We guess. We interpret silence as evidence. We fill in gaps with insecurity. We let pride lead instead of honesty. But real connection requires courage. It requires openness. It requires a willingness to walk through discomfort and into deeper understanding. Sex communication is relationship communication. Sex communication is not about critiquing. It's not about blaming. It's not about pointing out flaws. It's about inviting your partner into your inner world. When you express your needs, you're not complaining, you're sharing a part of yourself. When you listen to their needs, you're not being judged, you're being trusted. Healthy couples understand that intimacy is built, not assumed. It requires updates, maintenance, conversation, honesty, like every other part of a relationship. Think about it. You would never expect finances to stay stable if you never talk about money. You would never expect emotional closeness if you never talk about feelings. So why do so many people expect sexual intimacy to thrive in silence? Intimacy thrives where communication thrives. Connection deepens where vulnerability is welcomed. A strong relationship isn't one without challenges. It's one where both partners decide, we will face those challenges together. Breaking the silence with compassion. If you've never had these conversations, starting can feel intimidating. But here's a simple truth. The goal is not to be perfect. The goal is to be honest. And honesty begins with compassion. Not, you never want me anymore. But, I miss feeling close to you. Not, you're not satisfying me. But, I want us to explore what makes both of us feel good. Not, something is wrong with you. But, I want to understand you better. Sex communication is less about what you say and more about the intention behind it. When the intention is connection, not accusation, your partner will feel safer, more open, and more willing to meet you in that vulnerable space. Because sex is not just a physical act. It's a language, a shared emotional vocabulary, a reflection of how we feel about ourselves and each other. Desire changes, and that's okay. One of the most common fears couples have is the belief that if desire changes, something is fundamentally wrong. But desire changes naturally over time. Bodies change, hormones shift, stress affects libido, medication affects libido, trauma, fatigue, and emotional strain affect libido. Even aging affects libido. These changes are not signs of failure, they are signs of humanity. When couples learn to talk about these changes without shame, they transform a challenge into an opportunity for deeper bonding. Instead of drifting apart, they lean in. Instead of retreating, they explore. Instead of guessing, they understand. Because pleasure evolves, needs evolve, intimacy evolves. And when two people evolve together, their love becomes richer than anything they experienced at the beginning. The power of being seen and wanted. Sexual connection is not just about satisfaction, it's about affirmation. You matter to me. I still want you. I still choose you. These messages strengthen the emotional core of a relationship. They reduce insecurity. They increase trust. They create a bond that feels alive. In long-term relationships, one of the most beautiful gifts partners can give each other is the feeling of still being wanted. Not out of habit, not out of obligation, but out of genuine desire. That desire doesn't always spark automatically. Sometimes it must be nurtured, reignited, co-created. But when it is, the relationship becomes a sanctuary rather than a routine. Healing through intimacy. Sometimes, intimacy uncovers wounds, old insecurities, past experiences, unmet needs. These moments are not roadblocks, they are invitations to heal. Sex communication allows couples to confront fears they didn't even realize were present. Fear of rejection, fear of inadequacy, fear of aging, fear of no longer being desirable, fear of losing the spark. But here's the transformative truth. When two people choose to understand each other instead of withdrawing from each other, intimacy becomes healing instead of hurtful. Talking openly about sex helps you rewrite stories of shame into stories of strength. It turns vulnerability into closeness. It turns fear into connection. It turns silence into understanding. The courage to ask, listen, and learn. The most connected couples are not the ones who never have mismatched desires. They are not the ones who always get it right. They are the ones who stay curious about each other. They ask, they listen, they learn, they adapt. Because a relationship is not static, it is a living, breathing partnership that grows as the people in it grow. Your needs at 25 are not your needs at 40. Your desires at the beginning are not your desires after children, after stress, after life reshapes you. The question is not, why have things changed? The question is, are we willing to grow together? Rebuilding connection when it feels lost. Maybe you're listening to this and feeling the weight of your own silence. Maybe the distance between you and your partner feels wide. Maybe intimacy has faded. Maybe communication has become minimal. Maybe you both feel disconnected, unsure how to bridge the gap. Here's the truth that brings hope. It is never too late to reconnect. Not when the love is still there. Not when both people care. Not when both people are willing to talk. Rebuilding intimacy does not happen through pressure, guilt, or forcing closeness. It happens through presence, patience, and communication. Start small. Start gently. Start honestly. A simple conversation can begin a powerful transformation. Sex communication is an act of love. At its core, talking about sexual needs, fears, and desires is an act of love. Because love is not avoiding discomfort, it's walking through it with someone. Love is not pretending everything is perfect, it's choosing truth over silence. Love is not expecting your partner to read your mind, it's inviting them into your inner world. And this is the heart of it. Intimacy is not built on perfect bodies. Intimacy is built on open hearts. When two people speak honestly about what they want, what they miss, what they need, and what they fear, they create a relationship that is resilient, intentional, and deeply connected. The legacy of love you build together. A long-term relationship is not measured by the years you stay together, it is measured by the depth of connection you cultivate. Communication, especially about intimacy, is the bridge that keeps love alive, vibrant, and evolving. When partners dare to speak their truth, they create a legacy of honesty rather than suppression, of passion rather than complacency, of connection rather than distance. Imagine a relationship where you feel understood, you feel desired, you feel emotionally safe, you feel physically connected, you feel valued, you feel chosen, again and again. This is not a fantasy. This is what happens when couples communicate, honestly, lovingly, consistently, about the intimate parts of their lives. To anyone listening who feels afraid to begin these conversations, please know this. Your needs are valid, your voice matters, and intimacy is a shared journey, not a silent one. Sex communication is not a sign of trouble. It is a sign of commitment, a sign of maturity, a sign of love that is strong enough to seek truth. So speak with courage, listen with compassion, open the door to deeper connection. Because in the end, love does not fade when desire dims, it fades when communication does. And love does not grow when everything is perfect, it grows when two imperfect people choose each other, understand each other, and reconnect with each other, again and again. Your relationship deserves that courage. Your partner deserves that honesty. And you deserve a love that feels alive.